Today is Twitch Tuesday?
Twitch Tuesday?
Twitch Tuesday.
Oh, okay. So, does that mean it's the 11th or 12th? That's what I was asking.
That means it is the... That's a good question. I think it's the 12th, but I'm terrible with dates. It is the 13th.
It's
So,
the 13th.
I'm off. Yeah, it's the 13th.
Oh, I think we're on.
We're on?
Are we on? We're on. Okay.
We live? I think we're live.
Alright, so our sound levels sound pretty good. So, hey guys! Sorry it's been so long. Apologies. The 3D Jam has got my team, aka Martin, me, and going out and evangelizing Elite Motion. As we probably did in the last Twitch stream, if you remember, we talked about the 3D Jam and kind of our travels. But happy to be back in HQ, SF. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are building. So we're coming up on the end of week 2, beginning of week 3. It's pretty exciting. For those of you who didn't tune in last time, the Elite Motion is hosting a 6-week build competition called the 3D Jam. Check out our developer portal. You can go to 3D Jam Tile, and it'll give you all the information on that. But Martin, let's talk about our travels. Let's talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. When was the last time we did a Twitch session?
I think it was after...
Before East Coast or after East Coast?
Before Germany.
Before Germany. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we've gone to a bunch of places since we last did a Twitch channel stream. We did... Channel stream. We went to Europe and you did Cologne, Gamescom, then you went to, after Cologne we went to Berlin, went to the Game Science Center in Berlin, which was really awesome.
Love those guys, super swell guys.
Yeah, that place was, if I was a kid and I went there, I would have loved that. I did love it. Game Science Center in Berlin, did a meetup there, did a workshop there, then we flew to London. We were with the Coda Dojo guys, we did a workshop there, gave a talk, gave out a lot of hardware, and then that was the Europe tour. Then we went to the East Coast.
Well, don't forget VRLA.
Then, right, so we've traveled so much. And we did VRLA after that.
And then SVBR workshop.
And then SVBR workshop.
Acronyms, guys, acronyms.
Everything.
Key to everything VR.
Cities and VR as acronyms. Did VRLA, did SVBR, and then just recently we went on the East Coast tour. We hit Washington, Philly, New York.
Washington, D.C., mind you.
Washington, D.C., Philly, New York, Boston, and Toronto. All in 2 weeks. Met up with a bunch of VR devs there, went to meetups, gave talks, talked about the 3D Jam. And then finally, just this last week, we were out at the New York Media Festival in New York, showing VR to some people who tried it before, but for the most part, people who hadn't, which was really cool.
So let's jump into it. In case you guys don't remember, my name is Anthony. So I'm a developer programs manager and our events manager. So what I do is I deal with developer programs like this. So things that talk to our devs and get them excited to build, and also deal with the minutiae and problems they might have. Martin is
I am a developer evangelist, which means I evangelize to developers about Leap Motion as a platform, the technology, what you can build with it. Slash, I'm a developer designer because I make stuff as well, which is what we're going to be talking about for a bit today. 2 things that I made and how you guys can make things yourselves.
Okay, so let's talk about what got you excited about VR.
What got me excited about VR?
I mean, these are my questions. Feel free, guys, if you have any questions for Martin right now, just hop in and we'll be sure to check our screens. We both have our laptops here. Just give any questions going.
What excited me about VR? Everything. It's the coolest thing there is. You can think of any experience, reality, idea, and then make it. I mean, the tech is obviously, there's limitations. Right now, it's obviously not as good as reality. That's the end goal of VR. But for what we have now, it's pretty amazing that you can just think of an experience and recreate it and have it be experienced by people the same way that they experience the real world. People have said that it's sort of the final medium, the final platform. It can emulate all the mediums that came before it. So if you're interested in any other art form, you could recreate that in VR and take it sort of a step further than you ever could. Yeah, just sort of limitless potential. Anything that you can.
Limitless potential.
Limitless potential.
That's marketable. Right
That's
there.
that's pretty evangelist talk. I would say. Yeah.
Limitless potential. So let's kind of go back a little bit. So Martin, you developed an app for last year's 3D Jam, which we talked about before on the channel, which was called Weightless.
Mm-hmm.
And in Weightless, which some of you haven't tried, check out our Dev Gallery, or sorry, our App Store. It is on our App Store as well.
It's on App Store. It's on the Dev Gallery. It's on both. Yeah.
But talk about like what was like developing that and your intention behind that.
Yeah. So Weightless was sort of my first real project, VR project and Unity project and Leap Motion project. The thing that spurred me to start building it was the 3D Jam. I wanted to make something. I had 6 weeks. It seemed like a
Last year.
good. This is last year. It seemed like a good opportunity to have a deadline and a reason to be building something. So when I first approached it, the idea came to me that I wanted to do something that you could only do using VR and Leap Motion, because, like I said, limitless potential. There's so many new things that we can now do with VR and with motion control and hand tracking that it seemed sort of obvious to me to do something new that was taking advantage of the strengths of these two mediums, I guess, medium and input. So the first strengths that I was looking at of VR and Leap Motion were being able to look around in any direction really quickly, with hand tracking, being able to do really subtle finger movements to interact with things. And then I guess the key component of it was that because Leap is a touchless, hapticless input, how could I work within that limitation to make something that was pseudo like you were touching physical objects. And the idea I stumbled across was that if you touched objects in zero gravity, they would take the momentum from your interaction, and it would give you this visual sense that you were actually touching objects that didn't exist in the real world. And so sort of combining all those together, came up with Weightless being in a space station, and then just ran with it from there pretty much.
And I'm going to post the Weightless trailer just for so you guys can check it out. And then just to give people an idea of like what Martin is talking about. But mostly, so Martin, in the 6 weeks that you were kind of like designing it, what challenges did you find like in development?
So 6 weeks seems like a long time when you start. I guess developing it by myself, there was a lot of things that I had to figure out how to do and then how long they would take to do. The interaction in Weightless is really pretty simple. If you have the Leap OVR Oculus prefab, that already takes care of the whole Oculus part of it and the whole Leap Motion part. You literally just drag in one prefab and hit play, and you have a scene that's Oculus and Leap Motion enabled. The interaction is just taking an object, adding a rigid body component to it, and turning off gravity. So the mechanic of the experience is really simple. The parts that took longer for me were figuring out the whole game asset pipeline of creating a model, unwrapping it, texturing it, all the stuff that you have to do to get a 3D model into a real-time game engine. And then, yeah, a lot of it was just sort of first time that I was doing it. So figuring out how, if I wanted to change a texture on the fly of a hand, so if you have a button and it turns on gravity, how do I make the hand purple? And how do I get the physics optimized? That's another thing with Leap and motion control. If you're using physics in any way for physics interactions, people can do weird things, like they can move their hand as fast as they want. So you sort of want to tweak the physics for a balance between performance and fidelity. How often are you calling the physics stuff so that somebody can move their hand really fast and it still hits an object instead of just goes through it? So yeah, there are all these little things that a lot of Googling, a lot of scratching my head. But
A lot of scratching your head.
a lot of scratching my head.
You have a lot of hair though, so it looks like you didn't go bald from it.
It was a metaphor. But
Metaphor.
I don't know if it's a metaphor, but
Nice.
you know what I'm talking about.
So another thing that since Weightless did come, like you built it for the 3D Jam last year, And before you started working for Leap Motion, you also have like integrated new aspects of it, right? Like you've added new functionalities, such as a chain, and you've also used the Leap Motion new image hands assets, right?
Yeah, I've done that much work on it. I added a new object that is just a chain that floats around that's fun to play with, and you can like twirl it around in your finger, which is really fun in zero
So
gravity.
you diminished the chain.
The chain's pretty cool. You should check out the
chain
chain.
is pretty
If
cool.
you haven't checked out the chain,
The chain is like, whoa. It's really, it's pretty amazing.
people, it should just be called chain at this point.
I think
and then,
that'd be weird.
okay,
That'd
all right,
be such a
weightless chain, DLC.
DLC.
The image hands update though, yeah, that adds a lot. If you haven't checked out image hands yet, it's been out for a while.
I'll link the bite-sized video that Martin made that can teach you how to use image hands and potentially like integrate it into your own project if you guys are interested. So I'm gonna put it in the chat room as Martin explains what image hands is.
Yeah, so if you haven't checked out image hands before, basically what we had been doing and what you can still do if you want is take the tracking data from the Leap, and we used to assign a 3D model that was rigged and animated so that when you moved your hand you would see a 3D model moving where your hand was being tracked. What we're doing with image hands is, because the Leap Motion sensor is just two infrared cameras that output a black and white 2D video, every frame we're taking the black and white video of your hand, cutting out the hand, and then laying that as a texture on top of the physics model. So the effect is that in VR, when you look at your hand, you just see a black and white video of your hand. So when I hold my hand up, I can see my ring, I can see all the lines on my hand. They are essentially photos of my hand, which adds a ton to presence. It makes them feel not like a puppet hand or some sort of avatar, but just like your hands are in VR, which is sort of the end goal for Leap.
And then kind of why are your image hands better than like say like a model, the rigged hand models that you would use and did you use initially? Like why did you like them better and what did they do for your experience?
Yeah, so I mean the biggest thing is probably that they are your hands. So even how real the 3D model hands were, which looked really realistic and had veins and everything. Every person's hands are different, so every person that tries it is going to have slight differences from whatever hand model, however realistic. So letting everyone see their actual hands as video feeds is great. And then another thing is sometimes when tracking confidence gets low, if your hands are really crossed over or if the camera can't see very much of your hand, there could be some jittering with sort of the underlying tracking. But with image hands, because you're laying the video feed of your hands over that model, the video feed is always going to be right. Even if your hands are all the way out and sort of like you can't see your fingers at all, the video feed is still going to be correct, even if the underlying physics model is having some tracking issues. So that helps maintain presence as well, because your hands are always being shown correctly, at least on the graphics layer.
Okay, I finally found the video. Sorry guys, it took me way longer than I expected. Okay, so recently Alex Colgan, our head writer for Leap Motion, who actually mans our blog, he wrote up kind of like a 6-week like how you should be building your 3D Jam project. So what Martin and I thought would be really interesting is like let's go through it and kind of like see what really applies to like your experience and potentially like maybe some of the developers who are programming for the 3D Jam. So
cool.
Let's try to do this, guys. So hang on one second. Luckily, plans ahead. We have a window caption. No window caption. There we go. Okay. So we get our video out of it. Martin and I will move. Okay. So if you guys haven't been to our blog, this is what kind of it looks like. You can kind of see it here. What we'll be going through is kind of just like an infographic how to build your 3D Jam project. So as Alex like kind of laid out into the map, it's like there's 6 weeks into the jam, and so the first thing you're gonna have to be doing is like what a big idea. Martin, do you want to care to like speak to what this means and learning like what some of these bullet points are meaning?
Yeah. So step one of building something is obviously having an idea for what you want to build. So in Alex's great infographic, he's laid out 3 sort of steps for that. First one is learn what's out there, what people have done, learn from others. So by checking out the gallery on our developer portal, by checking out the itch.io from last year with all the other entries from the 3D Jam, seeing what other people have built, what was successful, what wasn't successful, if your idea has maybe been attempted in some way by someone else and how they did it, and how you could improve on what they did. Definitely a great first step. Then building on strength, understanding what the leap is good at and what the leap isn't so great at. So understanding what the input is and how to use it best is definitely, I think, a good way of going about it rather than having some idea and then trying to force it to work. Checking out the documentation, checking out what sort of assets we have, because they could inspire you for building something. We have a huge library of really cool stuff like widgets and pass-through and quick switch and a bunch of demos that you could build off of and create something really cool out of. And then the last step, checking out sort of, you probably already know what platform you want to build on, but we have integrations for Unity, Unreal, WebVR, Internet of Things, a ton of different ways for you to get building. So step one, check out all those things, research, and then hopefully come up with something that you want to build. Step two on Alex's infographic is prototype. So most of you probably from a game design background. If you're not, it's pretty simple. Create something small, the quickest way to get your idea into a playable format so that you can check whether it's interesting, compelling, fun, educational, whatever you're going for. Get something built, the basic mechanic of whatever your idea is, so that you can decide whether it's worth spending the next 4 weeks building, or if it turns out it's not that fun, maybe you want to try something else. For Weightless, the prototype that I built was really simple. It was a gray box, a gray room, with some cubes that had the gravity turned off on them, and then I just like slapped them around the room. And I thought, hey, this is pretty fun. Now what can I make from it? So prototypes should be simple, quick, not pretty, but they should be interesting in some way that you want to build them into something bigger. Yeah, keep going. Step 3, week 3.
So this is where we are, right?
This is, yeah. I guess we're just at the start of week 3, right?
Start of week 3.
Start of week 3. So hopefully and also this week 1, week 2, week 3. Don't freak out if you're at week 3 and you're still in the ideas stage, although
AKA
you should probably hurry up.
week
AKA week 1. But definitely, these are good steps to follow through. The timing may be completely different. I know that he might not want me to say this, but I think Henry worked on his entry he only had a few days. I think he had like 10, 12 days, 15 days?
8 days.
8 days. So Henry Hoffman, who created Aboard the Looking Glass, which was the first place winner of the 3D Jam last year, only had access to an Oculus Rift for 8 days.
A limited amount of time.
And he created something amazing. So,
but he had a games background with a core idea. So a lot of what Martin's going to talk about in design, that's the key.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is these are steps, not rigid sort of timelines. But so week 3, set design. So one of the biggest things I think in VR is environmental. So like where are you transporting people to when you give them the headset? That's something that is maybe a little bit new, that you're thinking about spatial, volumetric, architectural almost ideas when you're designing a space. And it's definitely, I am focusing on VR. Is that okay? I just realized that if you're on the other track, maybe some of these things.
I think designing for motion, like motion control, is like something that we talk about a lot. It's also understanding range and like certain like gestures. You could talk about it like that.
Yeah. So I mean, set design from the larger sort of architectural level
so it's not
and
okay
down
to
to.
talk about VR, guys.
and down to it's not okay.
It's not okay.
And down to the sort of human interaction set design as well. So where are you placing things? Even if it's in a desktop setting, are you placing things that are easily accessible from the tracking volume of the leap? Actions that will be repetitive, that will be straining if they're repetitive. What?
If somebody's standing or if they're
Somebody's, yeah. Just basically taking into account that you're having people move in the space that you're creating, not just click things or press buttons to navigate through them. You're creating spaces that humans will be moving through with their hands, like this. Visual design, sound design, just figuring out sort of what, okay, you have your idea, you have your prototype, what do you want your end product to look and sound like?
But also, sound creates like an interesting like concept of haptics. You brought up haptics a little bit before that too, of like how visual design and sound design, you know, a lot of people can do like, if you touch an object and it makes a sound that's very realistic to that sound, like it can give you a sense of like this, the object in space and more dimensionality of it, you right?
Yeah, so it goes back to the leap motion being a touchless sensor, is that when you do touch objects, you want to give as much feedback as possible through the channels that you have that an interaction has happened. So when you press a button, having the visual feedback of the button depressing, having the visual feedback of the button maybe changing color, and also having audio feedback of some kind that tells you pressed a button. When all those things sync up, people sometimes have the effect that they did touch something, even though, you know, consciously they know that they're not touching something. All of those things combine to trick your brain into thinking that you have.
And that to me is like the epitome of just like also can be integrated in your project later on, upon user testing and things like that. And I think that's going to bring us up to the next point.
Which is fine tune. Yeah. So
that was a really
pretty
seamless segue. Thank you. Yeah, I know.
that one pretty much is self-explanatory. Once you've got up to a point where like, okay, I have my idea here, the prototype was great, I've built something, I'm liking the look of it, then comes the part where most of your time is probably going to be spent in this area, and it's not super fun always, fixing things, figuring out, okay, I have everything in here, but it doesn't feel great, tweaking values. Again, especially if you're doing something with physics, I'd say this is where you want to spend a lot of your time getting things to feel right, since they aren't there in real life. Getting them to virtually feel right is a bit harder. Iterate, rinse, repeat, get the word out. Yeah, and getting the word out, that's, and submitting your first build. All these are good points. So if you have something that's ready at this point, posting it to the forums, posting it in the R Oculus and R Leap Motion subreddits.
I have a counterpoint to that.
Yeah. Don't share it, I guess.
No. What if I have a project that I'm like uncomfortable sharing? What benefits me from sharing it?
What benefits you from sharing it? The benefits are if you're.
Because I feel like I've developed this secret, you know, project.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really pumped on it. I'm really scared somebody might steal my idea.
Valid point.
Okay.
Valid point.
Yes.
Totally up to you if you want to share it or if you want to wait until the end and send it in.
Last minute. Midnight.
Last minute. I'd say most people at this point, if you're in week 4, if you have an idea that's really unique and maybe easy for someone else to copy, then I'd say maybe totally up to you if you want to share it or not. But most likely, if you have an idea that you've been developing for 3 weeks, it probably took you 3 weeks to get to the stage where it's at now. And most other developers have probably been working on, if they're entering the 3D Jam, have probably been working on their own stuff and not been waiting till week 4 to swoop on your idea. But
see you at week 4, guys.
Still obviously totally your decision. But getting people's feedback on this stuff, especially when it's VR, which is new, motion control, which is new, a lot of unknowns. An alternative would be to just get as many people as you can who are physically around you to try your demo and then give you feedback, rather than posting it publicly if that's something you're worried about.
Internally, we do a lot of user testing as well and reliability testing.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of that is because you can't always assume what people will do. As Martin said about kind of design, I think repeating the action and having repeatable action is like really key, and especially when you're designing in VR.
Agreed.
I make points.
And
okay.
Oh yeah, sorry, last point on that one. get the word out. So even if you're not posting builds publicly for people to try, tweeting or posting screenshots or GIFs of your cool new app. Cool new app is a really good way to get people excited about it, and also to keep yourself motivated on your project. Sharing something and then having people be like, yeah, that's cool, I really want to try that, is good feedback, especially towards the end of this 6-week cycle of building things.
Cool. And then also it's just like, it seems like we're going into the finish line, like week 5. Oof. And it kind of talks about like, what do you think he means by 50% like innovation, 50% execution?
So what Alex was pointing out is the judging criteria. So obviously if you're making an entry for the 3D Jam, the end goal is to submit it for judges to look at it, play it, and sort of decide what they think about it, and then hopefully do well in it. So looking at the judges' criteria, 50% of the judges' points are for innovation, and 50% are for execution. So innovation, I guess, is probably a better description than the one I'm gonna ad-lib, but innovation is, I would say, is this something new? Is this using leap motion in a way that's unique to the input? Are you doing something that you could only do using hand tracking in VR or in desktop or in IoT? And I think that one's really important, because if you're taking a game that is, or if you're taking an experience that you could do on another input, innovation probably is looking for something that is specific to leap. But on the flip side, you have execution, which is, okay, how well did you do what you set out to do? How polished is the experience?
So, counterpoint, I'm sorry, not counterpoint.
Yeah.
Question. So in Weightless, do you feel like you were more into, like, where do you feel your execution and innovation came in? Was it the movement control, or was it the finessement? Like, where do you think that came in with that experience for you?
For me, I think my measure of success for myself on the project was...
I'm trying to get him to get hard stuff, hard measurable stuff for you guys.
Yeah, my measure of success on innovation was this something you could do without VR or without leap motion? And I would say no. If you tried to play Weightless using a monitor and a gamepad or a mouse and keyboard, it would be terrible, and it probably wouldn't work at all, because it relies on you having the dexterity and fidelity of your fingers to interact with things that are floating around. On the execution side, I would say it was much less. There was just a lot of stuff that if I had more time or a team to work on, I would love to polish up more. But innovation to me is the sort of, the more exciting one, although they're being judged equally. So prioritize how you will.
So
we have an inspiring "Will you build it?" What will you build at the end?
Well, so with that, it's like, it seems like, you built this experience, and Martin doesn't benefit, like, a lot of our developers now benefit from. We know we've gone through this once before. We're creating a lot more visuals and a lot more videos for you guys to have access to, and to hopefully like integrate more innovation into your projects as well. So Martin, you've also built a new demo, right?
I have. I've pretty much just finished a new demo.
Intrigue. Okay.
Intrigue.
Do tell.
So my new demo, which is currently called GeoBuds, name potentially in flux.
Influx.
Influx. That's not the name, but could be.
Good name.
New demo, GeoBuds, is a little tough to explain, but it came out, so doing the sort of same design
Take
thinking.
us through from Weightless to GeoBuds. Take us through that.
So taking through the same sort of design thinking that I had behind Weightless, when I started this new project, I was looking at the assets that we already had on our developer gallery, some of the stuff the front-end guys built. There was a lot of cool stuff in there that I didn't think had been fully utilized yet. In particular, the UI widgets, the buttons and the sliders and the scroll text windows. I thought they were really cool, and there was a lot of work put into those. So I wanted to sort of make something with them. In particular, the buttons were really cool. They feel really great to press. They depress. They have like an engaged state, and they feel really tactile for things that don't exist. So I wanted to make a project using the buttons. At the same time, I checked out. I saw an example of someone with a script where you have an object that has a target position, and when you push it away from that target position, it tries to get back to it, target position. Really simple. So I wanted to combine those ideas of having a button, having lots of buttons that I wanted the user to push, and having these shapes that had target positions that they wanted to go back to. And then from that, made a little prototype button, some shapes that when you press the button, they go to their target position. When you press the button again, they fall. Press the button, go back to the target position. And obviously you can slap these objects around. And that was the prototype, which was also pretty compelling. So then I made this thing called GeoBuds, which is sort of a... Yeah, it's...
So as we go through it, feel free to ask questions. Martin and I are going to do a little shuffle really quick, just because we're going to project it on the TV above.
Okay.
So bear with us, guys, as we do a little shuffle.
Okay. So can you see this on the screen?
We can, hang on. It's a little bright. There we go. Yeah.
Okay. So you can see this on the screen.
I tilt it a little bit forward though, just to show the words we want to.
So, oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this demo is called GeoBuds.
Title pending.
Title pending. Work in progress. Working title. So yeah, it says, GeoBuds are little geometric dudes who are powered by friendship and good vibes. Want to hang out with them for the day.
Whoa. And what are those hands I'm looking at?
So this is image hands. So you can see here, you can see my ring showing up because it is the video pass-through of the hands. Yeah, and I guess I'll just play around with it for a little while, and then people can ask questions and talk about it a bit. But sun's rising.
Well,
So, I don't know, what do you want me to start on this? It's
So
sort of
Martin,
self-explanatory, but I'll explain. Yeah, so you start off in this geometric dome space, and you've got all these buttons around you. And so initially they just say, they say buds, question mark on them. And then when you hit one of these buttons, it changes to buds, exclamation mark. So now you're friends with them and they're all happy. Press the button again, it says not buds, and they're sad and they have little sad faces. So you sort of want to be friends with all of them. And then they have little smiley faces, they have audio that's positional, so put my head next to one of them. It sounds like they're in my left ear and then my right ear. They have a little audio that says yeah or depending on if you're friends with them or not. Yeah, the interaction is pretty simple, but because of how fine the fidelity of the tracking is with the leap, you can use one finger to interact with them, or you can, if you want, smack them with your whole hand way out of the space, and they always end up coming back, unless you turn them off at the same time, and then they just go flying. But you can also always become friends with them again, and then they'll fly back. And you also lean in with your head and bump through them like that.
and you're using the Oculus head tracking for that bump, correct?
Yeah, so there's a collider on your head which pushes them around. One other thing that I wanted to do in this demo was the movement system in Weightless was good once you figured out how to do it, but for a lot of first-time users it was a bit hard to get. So in this demo what I did was I took the limited tracking volume of the DK2, which is sort of, if you imagine the camera, actually the camera is probably right about here. The field of view goes out like this. So I took sort of the widest part of the field of view and made this open circular space that you stand in, so you can comfortably walk the edges of this, get close to things, and still be within the tracking volume, so that you can actually just walk around like you would in the real world. Basically, a track volume, sort of like what we're going to have with the Vive with room scale tracking. Yeah, so you can just, the movement system is moving in the real world, which is what I think gives you the best experience.
So, why did you decide on different interactions and for each like experience like that?
So once I had the prototype was pretty much just like one of these little cubes, pressing a button, dropping them, pressing the button, they go back to their target position. And then once I had that and it was fun, I wanted to see sort of what else I could do using just that mechanic. So, for instance, this group is different shapes, they're moving in different sort of arcs.
And then can we talk about the sound a little bit?
Yeah. So it's difficult to tell in this because we have it playing out of speakers, but the audio is using VisiSonics, VisiSonics. VisiSonics has a plugin for Unity called Real Space Audio. I'm just reading things so that you guys
Real Space Audio.
Real Space Audio, which is really awesome, and it lets you do positional, binaural, HTRF. There's a lot of different things that I think might mean similar things or the same thing. Audio Unity. So I have the audio. Should I restart this? Oh, what do you think? It's about to become nighttime.
What's happening?
Oh no! It's the end of the day. These guys got trapped. Go. Yeah.
Night has fallen. All hope is lost. Oh no!
Go back.
So is that a set timer on the demo?
Yeah, so I designed this demo specifically for conventions. So when you start the demo, you can choose whether you want the day to be 3, 5, or 8 minutes long, and then that's how long it takes for the sun to set. But in the build that I release on the gallery, you'll be able to set it to infinite, so you can just hang out with them forever.
You'll never have to leave your friends again.
Virtual reality. You'll never have to leave your friends.
You'll make new friends, digital friends, real friends,
Your friends
forever friends.
little geometric shapes with faces on them that want to be your friends.
So, talking about design a little bit with the sound, you also gave the blocks their own sound effects. Is that key, do you think, to give more of an immersive experience? Or like, what was the thought of like giving them sounds like that?
Empathy is something that VR is really good at. This is not a great at all example of empathy, because it's literally the most simple things that you could do to try to make something feel alive. So these guys have little faces on them, and when you push them, they change their face to being little surprised faces. Also, when you press the button, you can hear. I don't know if you can hear that, but they have like a yay, and then they have an oh when they fall to the ground. And just those simple things of faces and a bit of audio gives them sort of a little bit more life. Originally, I had just geometric shapes, just cubes and tetrahedrons and spheres floating around that you could bat around, and that was fun. But once I gave them these little faces and a bit of audio, sort of brought them to life, because you can move your head around them and they appear like real three-dimensional things. So empathy is something that you can.
Kate is listening in. She's watching. Shout out to Kate.
Shout out to Kate.
So potentially, like with the whole like sound kind of aspect of this demo, why did you think sound was so important in this one? Like Weightless, the objects have their own sound effects as well. It's something that everything that you're building seems to very take sound is into mind. That's really cool.
I think sound is a huge part of VR.
Wow, that was really amazing.
You haven't seen me do this before?
Huh?
You
No,
haven't
I'm
seen
playing
this?
it up for the audience. Jeez,
Oh,
Martin.
okay, wait. You don't have to.
No, I actually haven't seen you do this. Sorry, guys.
Audio is a huge part of VR. Oculus has released their own audio SDK, which actually licenses VisiSonic's real space audio, but they've been working on it sort of separately outside of Oculus's licensing from them. A lot of people have talked about audio being this huge part of VR, because the visual side is obviously the first side that most people get exposed to, but the audio side is just as important to creating presence, and especially when it's positional, like you expect in the real world. It's something that a lot of people that I've demoed this to already, some of them pick it up, a lot of them don't, but I think subconsciously they do, because it's something that your brain picks up whether you are aware of it or not. In this, I wanted to have each little geobud have reaction audio to when you push them, but that, on top of all the physics calculations that are going on every frame, and all the real-time lighting and shadows and everything.
Hashtag physics. Hashtag Unity.
Hashtag all those things.
All those things. Another quick question too for myself. It seems like you had like a set design intention. Was there anything that influenced the design of the creatures, or potentially like the shapes and everything?
Honestly, it came out of me knowing beforehand that I wanted to have as many shapes as I could, so to give this whole sort of swarm flocking effect.
Wow.
I wanted to have as many as I could, And knowing that the more complex the shapes were, the more expensive it was going to be performance-wise. I just decided, hey, geometric shapes, that'll be, if you have a sphere collider, box collider, those are the easiest to calculate physics-wise. And then I put in tetrahedrons and octahedrons, which are mesh colliders, and totally ruins that.
Tetrahedrons are 20-sided figures.
Tetrahedrons are these little guys.
Oh.
Three-sided.
Three-sided.
Sorry.
Oh, dodecahedrons are 20-sided.
Not three-sided. 1, 2, 3, 4 sided. And octahedrons are these little guys. Which are mesh colliders, which actually destroyed my whole simpler colliders for better performance idea. But once I had that, I was like, okay, geometric shapes for the little guys, geometric shapes for the environment, and then way out there, if I press, is that one? Nope. There we go. Geometric, gigantic shapes that sort of float around. So yeah, you're in a geometric landscape with your friends.
Well, so Martin, thanks for. So you, as you said, we should expect this in the coming weeks.
Coming weeks, yeah. If not sooner.
Okay.
I want to get it out there.
That's exciting. All right, so let's switch back to couch mode.
All right.
You want me to turn off the
Yes.
and black screen?
Just hit the off button. Back to couch mode.
Couch mode.
Cool.
Okay. Well, hey guys, so that was a great experience right there. Cool new demo. Noticed that Martin selfishly tried his own demo, didn't let me try it. Which, I figure, why not, right? It's yours.
So selfish of me. Next time you can try my new demo.
But yeah, so as Martin said, it's just like he had this idea, he's been working on it for about 2 months, right?
2 months between the traveling to Europe and East Coast and all the other stuff. Yeah, 2 months on and off.
But he easily could have done that in 6 weeks.
Yeah. Totally doable in 6 weeks.
And so what we're saying here is just like, don't get discouraged, keep building. There's plenty of ways and avenues on our developer portal, tons of guides to help you out. Martin and I are also around, apparently, everywhere. You can
Yep.
also email developers at Leapmotion and ask us any questions. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. We're going to try to do more Twitch more regularly. Sorry, our travels have kept us from being in the stream as much. But we're excited to be here and answer any of your questions. So if there's no questions, I think I'm going to call it.
All right.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll try to do one, if not like this next week, the one after that. Just keep an eye on our newsletter. Also subscribe to our channel. That's the best way to get updates for what we're doing. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.